Welcome to the Compost Pile, a podcast where we break down gardening, homesteading, and more. Join your hosts, David Poole and Aaron Barnhill, as they pile up information and break it down so that you can be more successful in the garden.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Compost Pile, your podcast for all things gardening and homesteading. As with me always is the host with the most. We have David Poole over here, the owner of Mid-County Farm and Feed. He's the one that tells me how to grow things in my yard. You know, I'm kind of just a co-host here. Hi, I'm Aaron Barnhill. And I think today what we're going to do is I'm going to ask David a lot of questions about what I'm supposed to do to get ready for the spring, because I've done nothing.
And it's coming
It's coming so fast, David. I don't really know where to start from here. I guess where I should start is dirt, right? I have old beds that I feel like they've gotten kind of wore out over the last season. I grew in them heavily. I actually grew stuff spring, summer, and fall in my garden beds, and then just kind of let them do whatever they want for the winter. So where should I start with that? Do I need to get new dirt to amend it? Do I need to get new fertilizers? I don't know what to do.
Yeah, there's kind of a series of things that you should do. And I think that everybody should take a step back from even the dirt and the fertilizer right out of the gate and kind of just assess, like,
just kind of give it one
the
of
big
these.
picture. Yeah, like, you know, you see, like, your beds. Like, first take a look at your beds and make sure, like, before you go out and you buy all this new stuff for my beds, even still functional, depending on what they're made of. You know, a lot of people build beds out of wood. Are they still viable this year? Like, have they deteriorated? Do I need to, like, take care of the actual structural part first?
Yeah.
And I think that's often forgotten. And then, you're trying to do it and fix it between all the other things that come with spring, because everybody gets busy in spring.
Yeah, it kind of gets overwhelming a little bit, because if you don't take it one step at a time, like I'm trying to ask, like, you just get a little overwhelmed. You have to pick what you're going to grow, pick where you're going to put it, look at the lighting, look at all of everything here. You need to figure out if you want to rotate your crops, right? Grow different things in your beds so they don't deplete the soil completely. You have to figure out if you're going to move something. Oh my gosh, I'm getting overwhelmed.
It's, like I said, first, I want to look, like, at my beds. Is there anything I need to fix?
Yeah.
So that whenever I go to amending, preparing the soil, and everything else that comes with it, that I'm not going to have to backtrack. Because oftentimes you find people that get out there, they have everything ready, they bought it all, and they get out there and there's, like, some bigger underlying problem. And then they're in a rush to get it done, and then they end up getting sidetracked, or life gets busy, and then they miss part of the season. They're late. So, I start off with something so fundamental. It's just like checking, do I have plant supports, like cages, stakes that are ready to go? Is my trellis still going to hold the weight of whatever I normally grow?
Do I even need a trellis? Am I growing cucumbers and stuff this year? I don't know, right?
And then even more important from that is taking a step back and just, like, thinking about, if I've been growing for a while, what worked last season and what didn't work.
That's good advice.
Do I have any notes? And I know, like, the whole ideology of keeping a notebook or some form of, like, journal for gardening is beyond a lot of people nowadays. It's like, I don't want to write all this down, but, like, it is so instrumental in being able to figure out what worked, what didn't.
There's also apps for it too. There's also like my garden journal apps, right, where you can keep track of what seeds you have, what plants you have, their placement. Like, there's all of that in an app. So I don't personally like it. I like a journal, and I draw diagrams where I might draw out my bed, and then, like, write in what's in there and all that.
And I think, like, if you having those diagrams or reference material, it's going to help you crop rotate, which is important for pest and disease,
right?
From building up in the soil. So there's all these benefits where you can go back and you can alter the same setup over and over again to be more successful. But it starts with just looking at the bigger picture. What worked, what didn't.
Yeah.
Is everything that I normally use still ready to go and able to be used?
Yeah.
And then you can get into like the important part, which is soil.
So I'll ask you something. My largest bed that I have, that's a long rectangle, right? A long rectangular bed. The last thing that I grew in it was okra, right? So you know exactly how okra grows. It's almost like bamboo-y,
Right.
and it makes a very strong root tap, and then off of that it has the systems. And I just cut the okra down, but I didn't pull it out of the roots. So we have all of those old root systems in that. Do I need to get that out when I'm preparing for my soil?
You'll find a lot of people will, and the mass majority of people, I believe, they pull their plants up.
Like all the root ball, yeah, because
Yeah.
a lot of plants will make a big root ball like
But
that.
at the same time, I personally don't remove those root systems. I basically cut off everything right below the soil level and cover it back up and
Yeah.
make my amendments on top of it, because whenever I go to pulling those whole root balls and root systems out, I have to think about some of the microbes, maybe some of the fungal mycorrhiza that has attached to those root
Yeah.
tips. I'm disturbing the soil system, and that kind of leads you to a common myth in gardening about needing to till or turn over the garden.
Sure, yeah.
And
Yeah, because people like to fill their raised beds or their pots with real loose, loamy soil, right?
If you start with good soil from the very beginning, and if you didn't, that's no problem. You start with good amendments that help bring that soil to that same like loose, loamy texture that's going to drain well, that's going to hold nutrients, that's going to be easily accessible for roots and microbes. But the more you can keep the soil somewhat undisturbed, but still keep the right soil consistency,
Yeah.
the more successful I find that I've been able to be. And when I'm thinking about I'll cut them off and I'll leave them there because I'm also feeding the soil kind of biome or microbes.
Yeah, because it's
there
decaying and it's kind of
bacterias
composting,
are
right?
breaking down some of
Yeah.
those harder root systems, and it's feeding the soil.
And also, too, we know that on root systems, specifically when they're dead and alive, it's different, but when they're dying, they attract a lot of mycelium,
Yep.
right? It has all that surface area on there, and we know that mycelium is very good for dirt, and we want to leave that there, too.
Yeah,
So
so
that's,
you kind of, so what we'll do when we're looking at if we need to do something to our soil, the first thing I like to do is just kind of check the consistency of my soil. Grab a big handful of it after I've cleaned it out. I get all, for me, I plant kind of diversely, so I'll have some plants that stay. Just in a quick example, I have a bed that has a rosemary, kind of a trailing rosemary that hangs out the side of the bed, and there's one other herb in there that does very similar, but those are always in there.
yeah, they stick
So-
around all season. You don't
and
ever
so it's
pull them
another
out.
reason why I don't like pulling up things out
Right,
of
you're
that
not
bed,
disturbing it,
because
yeah.
I want to leave that those root systems intact and healthy and undisturbed, so that they don't get some form of shock
Yeah,
or
That's-
ruin their environment.
it makes a lot of sense, yeah.
But so we'll cut those things out. We make sure the beds are weed free, but we can take hand tools and we can gently press them into the soil and kind of work them back and forth. There's an old technique or tool that used to be known, or it's still known, they're still out there, you can buy them. It's called a broad fork.
Okay.
It's a large kind of curved fork, and it has two handles, and you step on it into the soil.
Yeah, I know exactly what
And
you're talking
you rock
Yeah.
it back and forth, and you're you are disturbing the soil, but you're gently
That's how you kind of get compacted soil
but
uncompacted.
you're
Yeah.
introducing oxygen
Right.
and pores into that soil that may be compacted
Yeah.
and allowing nutrients and water to get deeper. So we kind of take that same
But you're not
approach.
turning the soil.
No.
Right? You're leaving it how it is, but you're manipulating it, but you're not turning it over.
And I'll do that if my soil is kind of compacted or it's
Yeah.
clumping together real bad. So I'll take a big handful and I'll press it together,
Mm-hmm.
squeeze it, and then I'll see if it kind of crumbles back apart. If it has that crumbly texture, it has what I'm looking for. But
Right.
if I squeeze it together and it just holds into a dense ball, or it doesn't really fall apart very easily, then I might be experiencing a little bit of compaction, and that's
Yeah,
where
all of
I'll-
mine are compacted.
I'll kind of give it a little bit of aeration, and because in a raised bed and even in the ground, I learned, because I've never personally in my time of gardening, I never have grown in ground.
Never went old school. Never.
But
Yeah.
whenever I talked about transitioning from raised beds from in ground to raised beds with Paul Lemoyne, He talked about how even in the ground you lose soil and you have
Right,
to add.
right.
So soil breaks down because it is a living thing, and the particles become smaller and tighter together. So we have to be able to amend that soil. So I like to do these things, make sure my existing soil is kind of in the right
Yeah.
stage, and it's going to tell me what I might need to amend with.
So really, what I'm getting that you're saying is kind of just leave all the soil that I worked hard and built up, and it's fine. It's not used up, right? It's not used up from last season, and I kind of build on top of that. Is
Yeah.
what it sounds like. So I'll go get some fresh compost, manure, soil, and I'll just sort of press it or like leave it on top, but I won't turn it all in, right? I
Yeah,
won't
so
fold it all in. Yeah.
When we come to the spring season or even in the fall season, the same thing applies. If the soil has broken down and my bed is not to the level or volume that I want, then I'm not going to add necessarily like more soil, like garden soil or something like that. I'm going to add in there maybe a mixture of composts. Each compost has different nutritional values,
right.
different
Yeah.
benefits. So oftentimes we'll take a couple different composts and we'll fill that bed up, layer it up, and compost, just like a good quality fertilizer, is kind of like a slow release. It's going to continue to break down, and all those benefits from that compost continuing to break down
Right.
are going to seep deeper in the soil. It's going to allow maybe some of that microbe system to work on some of the maybe poorer soil that we might have from
Yeah.
previous seasons and keep it very useful intact. And I find that's the best way, is just to top dress with compost.
Well, that's good. That kind of answers that question. I guess my next one will be, it's so we're looking like we're headed into mid-February at this point. I haven't started any seeds indoors. I don't really have anything to transplant right now. I've kind of missed my window on certain things. I didn't plant onions. What should I plant now? I mean, we're headed squarely into spring, and I have no plans. So help me out. What do you think some of the best things I should get?
The number one thing that people grow in the spring, and people will say it's too early to plant them. I'm getting ready to plant tomatoes.
Okay,
This week.
yeah.
And there's two ways you can look at that. You can get them early. You can grow them up in containers to larger sizes so that they're more mature in a more controlled environment. But I'm getting ready to plant tomatoes and probably peppers. I'm gonna start planting them out early. And yeah, absolutely. Could we get a freeze?
And that's
some
the
extreme
worry
cold?
for some people is I don't want to plant tomatoes this early because it may frost again, right?
But I'll lean to like a point that I'll make a little later on is about systemization.
Yeah.
I have a system in place that's still out there from the cold season that I use to protect from ice on some of my cool season crops. It's still up there, the structure. So I have PVC hoops in my beds. I leave them up because I know that if I plant these tomatoes and peppers out early, I got to have a way to protect them. And there's so many different ways you can do that, but you're helping hold in some of that heat if it gets cool. And right now the temperatures are warm enough for these plants to really begin to kind of grow.
So those hoops don't come down for you until like May.
Maybe late April. Once the plant gets too big for the hoop, then it comes down.
Sucker out. Okay, yeah.
But that's going to be a little while, depending on the season.
Yeah.
But if you wait too long on these items, some people are going to wait all the way till Good Friday, which will be in the beginning of April this coming year. And you wait till that long to plan out some of these.
Your window's real short then if you do that.
Well,
yeah.
It'll still produce, but you're going to be far more susceptible to pest and disease.
Sure, because those climb as the temperature climbs,
because
right?
plants become more stressed.
Right.
Then those things become more prevalent. So I like to try to get them in early. And I could lose some, but I still have that window of opportunity to plant when the people that are waiting. I don't mind losing a plant here and there. Yeah, gardening is not a cheap hobby in general, but
it is most of the time cheaper just to go to the grocery store. I will say that.
But that's
true.
That's not the reason why.
No, it's not.
We all do it. It's a challenge. It's
of course,
it's for quality. But that's the number one thing we're going to see. Like a lot of people are going to come wanting to, by March 1st, everybody's
Yeah.
going to be wanting to plant cucumbers and eggplants.
Yeah.
But it's too early. Like the wind and the cool
It's too early to
temperatures.
plant cucumbers?
Neither of those
Okay.
two things like
The cold
temperatures.
mornings?
Like
Yeah.
eggplant specifically hates the wind.
Okay, wow. I didn't know
And
that.
This is a proven thing in all the years I've been doing this. I can get eggplant in early in March, and I can literally take it out of the truck. You know, granted, they're in smaller packs.
Right,
So they're
right.
more susceptible. And I can bring them straight inside, and they will already be droopy from just the walk that's like 30 feet. Because the cool winds,
Wow.
they don't tolerate. And
Oh, I didn't know they were so delicate.
you know, but like they like the heat.
Right.
They can grow all summer long when other things can't. So it's a way to utilize your space more wisely,
Right.
and understanding those plants. And cucumbers can grow in those warmer temperatures a lot as well. So, but they don't like wind either. You'll get them out and they'll blow over when they're young adolescent seedlings, and then they get kind of
They get boggy, yeah.
and they don't want to stand back up, and that they kind of get shocked, and they don't want to grow really well.
Yeah.
So waiting on those two, which are big staple items for a lot of people,
Here,
I think is
yeah.
important here specifically.
Yeah. So prepping for my spring garden, one thing I really need to do is, first of all, I need to figure out probably what I want to grow to eat for all year long, right? Take my journal, write it down. I want peppers, I want tomatoes, I want cucumbers, eggplants, I want carrots, maybe some garlic, all these types of stuff. Make a full list, right? And then on that, figure out which of these things need to come first, come second, and get really familiar with your plants.
And you also have to weigh out what's most important to you, because in raised beds or in most gardens nowadays, space is limited. So oftentimes you can't fit in a lot of those things. And then there's also the consideration, when I look at these list of items that I want to grow, do I have enough space to grow the things that are most important? And then I want item C, but I need a lot of space in this bed to make enough to make it worth my while.
Yeah.
And do I have the room to grow something where I'm just going to get one harvest and one sitting to cook, and then I went all these inputs and waited all this time for like one small meal?
Yeah.
And I think like you have to be kind of mindful in that, because sometimes you're just not planning enough of something. You don't have enough space. Like corn is a great example. I've never tried to grow corn as a raised bed gardener, because I know it's going to take an entire bed to plant it in the formation it needs.
Yeah. For like
so
6 of them.
so that I can get a handful of ears of corn. Like, it's just not worth it.
I will say to that end too, there are certain things that I'm just not going to grow because they are so cheap and they are so available in the grocery store. And honestly, my fiance hates it, but I've told her, I'm not growing regular green bell peppers. They're 70 cents at the store, and they're not nearly as prolific on the shrub as chilies, right? So if I'll grow jalapenos. Jalapenos are cheap, but I grow one jalapeno on the ground, and I have pounds of jalapenos all year long, right? I plant one bell pepper, like a California Wonder. I'm going to get 4.
California Wonder is the worst variety.
I'm going to get 4. You know what I mean? Like, that's it. And it's not worth my time, especially when you're talking about you have a limited amount of space. So that's definitely something to think about. Is how much space do I have, and what's worth it? What do I really want to grow? And for me, what's worth it to grow in that space is things that I can't get at HEB, right?
A simple one, that a lot of people don't mess with, but we grow one of many herbs, like common herbs that are in the spice cabinet, and we can grow one plant, and I will have enough for
I already know what you're
a
going to say.
long time.
Yeah.
Like I've mentioned this before on previous episodes. The dill plant that I got, like a quart of dill, that plant is still alive.
Yeah, so it lasted over all of this.
I cut it all the way down. I didn't even cover it. It is still alive right now in the garden, and it is about to blow up again. The rosemary, like I have enough rosemary for
I have to add,
a lifetime.
I have to add my favorite companion plant, which is basil too.
Yeah.
I have to add that. If you don't get basil started in the spring, you're messing up.
But you
straight up.
You can take those things and have one of a specific plant like that doesn't take a lot, and you can use those prolifically,
Right.
and get your money's worth out of. Granted, I know spices are fairly cheap.
They're
and you
cheap,
don't
yeah.
use a lot of them, but there's nothing better than
But they have added
fresh.
value, though.
Yeah.
They do. They have added value specifically in my example of basil. I plant basil in the garden not just to have fresh basil to cook with, but I plant it because it's one of the best pollinator attractors I've ever seen, bar none. I know that we're always wanting to plant flowers alongside our vegetables. That way we attract all the pollinators in, and then all the pollination happens. Well, basil attracts honeybees better than anything I've ever seen.
Yeah, they're dual purpose. So you get 2 for 1 on a lot of the herbs. So making sure that you're including those in there, even if you don't want to use the physical production aspect of it, they bring so much value in pollination and making the garden more successful. It helps you plan unintentionally to bring in also beneficial predators, things that can help keep the pest cycles in check.
Right.
Because we can't control everything ourselves.
I'd also like to I like to bring this up too because it gets so easy to get sort of in a track. A long time ago, I got really successful at growing peppers, and for a while that was pretty much all I did because I love peppers and I was successful at it. But you got to think outside the box because your yard and your space needs to be functional across like multiple different metrics, and it's really easy to forget about flowers.
Yeah.
Right. When I'm planning for the spring, right now my mind's going off. I'm like, oh man, I miss the onions. I miss this. I miss that. What am I going to plant to eat? But I'm not thinking about flowers very much, and I think that's a mistake, right? I need to get some flowers. I need to plan for some things.
You need to have you need to plan for your spring garden to have diversity,
right?
Because that's going to help assist you in pollinators and beneficial predators by bringing in different shapes, sizes, and colors of flowers. Because there's different flowers are going to attract different pollinators. Right. If I didn't have, let's say, basil in the garden, I'm not going to see near the quantity of bumblebees coming into the garden and pollinating things as I would without it.
They love those little white flowers. They love them.
We have some dwarf blueberries, they're called Hello Darling blueberries. They're a self-pollinating dwarf size, and I saw a very unique moth. It was not not a butterfly. It was a moth in the afternoon. The sun is kind of going down. It's cooling down. There's a moth flying around pollinating on the blueberry, stopping, and I would get close. He'd fly away, and it would come back. But it's something unique, and it kind of helps you prove that diversity of species and colors and shapes is going to help you, because so many people are like, oh, I don't have pollinators, and that's why I couldn't grow any of this. And that's, if you really step back, a lot, but not all, may not have enough diversity to bring in a wide array of pollinators.
Right, and that's one of the strengths of being a home gardener is that you have the ability to experiment with, and we're not monocropping, right? We're not farmers in Idaho that if we don't grow, 3 kilotons of potatoes, we're going to lose out for the year. So just spend your time and get all the flowers that you want. You can get as much as you want, and it's okay to fail. I think that's another thing that you need to know is we get so overwhelmed with, well, what am I going to do this year? Because spring is the beginning of multiple growing seasons for us, right? So we start getting overwhelmed with, all right, I need to start my spring garden. And then before you know it, you're thinking, well, what am I going to do in the summer? Like you're talking about for eggplant and okra and all these heat times. I'm like, well, what am I? But hey, don't worry about it. Get some stuff you need now. And also, don't worry about failing. Get all the flowers you want. I get weird stuff all the time.
We try something new every year. Some of them go in containers, and they get put around the garden. So there's ways to kind of stage things that you're unsure of, and you don't know whether they're going to be successful, and you don't want to waste your precious space. Stage things in containers. We end up having a bunch of containers just kind of scattered around the garden, and it's like that's how we do our mint.
Right.
Such things that we don't want.
Those are also things that you're isolating too, right? You're meant to be in a container so it doesn't take over.
And that's, diversity. I can't stress that enough.
And I will say this too, since we're talking about containers. When you're planning out what you're going to do, and when your space is limited, containers look really nice, especially this time of year when all of the big box stores will have lots of container options. and they're going to be cheap, right? Like Sam's Club around this time puts out big old containers. You might want to go get it. Be careful about what containers you use, because I'm a big kind of a guerrilla gardener, and I like to utilize anything I have available. But right now, I bought a container I thought would work very well for my avocado tree, because since avocados can't handle any type of cold, I've never planted it in the ground, but it's gigantic, right? So I had to find a gigantic container, and I found one of those giant tubs that people wash crawfish in that has the ropes handles.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? That container wasn't UV proof. So now it is literally crumbling apart.
Yeah.
It's just breaking off. Anytime I move it or touch it, shards just fly off.
This goes back to the old nursery pot. Nursery pots are so underrated, It doesn't always have to look good.
Yeah.
It needs to be functional.
I keep all my nursery pots,
Yeah.
by the way. I don't throw those away. So, and that's a huge thing. That's probably why I use that crawfish pot. But be careful about what you're using, because not everything is rated for outdoors.
Yeah. One thing that we talked a little bit about, like amending with compost,
Mm-hmm.
but and you mentioned it, we didn't really talk about it yet, but that's fertilizer. We definitely need to fertilize when we're prepping for spring, but we don't have to wait until it's time to plant.
Yeah, right.
Depending on the type of nutrients or fertilizer we're using, it might not be available the instant we put it out.
Like it might not be bioavailable in the soil for the
Right.
plant to absorb.
Some types, and mostly like the types that we use, organic types that are made from natural sources, they're going to rely on microbial life to help break that down,
Right.
to then make it available in a soluble form.
Like a fish meal or something like that, right?
Like a lot of organics are
Manure,
pelletized
yeah.
or have like a little some type of small like hard particle, and that's got to be broken down. A plant can't absorb that. They can't absorb the things inside there. So you're relying on some of the things that you built with good compost and good soil to help break that fertilizer down. Whereas if you used a more synthetic approach that has something that is put on a carrier specifically, that's going to release much more quick. You got to pick and choose what you want to do. And so with an organic, you need to put it ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
You can put some things in there when you are planting, but it's not going to be ready right then. And we want to have available nutrition when the plant is getting its feet going, it's putting on roots. So we'll often fertilize at the point in time we're prepping the beds
ahead of time.
Yeah,
ahead of time. That's good.
Let it
That's
start
good.
breaking down.
Good info, yeah.
And so I'm always fertilizing a little bit ahead of the actual planting season.
Right. Like if this weekend I want to get all my beds prepared, this is when I need to fertilize. And then next weekend or the weekend after that, maybe get my transplants in the ground, right? Yeah.
Any time ahead. And if you're doing consistently putting in a quality like slow release organic fertilizer, you're ideally going to have something working in the soil and breaking down all the time. So when you do get to that stage, and even if you are putting it right when you plant, you're just kind of re-upping what's already working in there. So over time, you're going to build up some of these nutrients in there when you're doing a slow release versus a lot of your synthetic quick release. They're there. They wash out really, really quickly because they release quickly.
You're wasting your money that
and then
way.
Your plants don't have consistent availability of minerals, hormones, nutrients, whatever they might need.
Yeah, that kind of goes double too for certain organic fertilizers like that a lot of people use, like chicken poop, right? Chicken poop is very nitrogen rich and it can burn your plants. But if you get your chicken poop, your manure in there well ahead of time, all of that manure will settle in and will enrich the soils around
when you're
it.
working with if you want like animal-based manure, you got to make sure it's composted.
Right, exactly.
Completely composted. You start putting manure from your chickens in the backyard, unless you have like a really good handle on how to speed the process up, like you could be looking at almost like 8-9 months a year.
Oh, wow. Wow, yeah.
Because you got to make sure that it is not hot at all.
Because it'll burn your plant up.
It will burn your plants up so fast and people tend to have a heavy hand in putting things out. They don't tend to measure or read labels, so they throw it out and then...
And that goes for everything except for rabbit poop. Rabbit poop is cold manure. You can put that right in.
Yep.
But
so it's... but you definitely fertilize ahead of time. That way when you are planting, things are working, especially if you're in the natural approach.
Yeah, for sure. And then also too, so maybe one of these last things, if I'm getting ready and let's say I'm kind of overdoing my spring garden, what should I be planting next? Right? So I'm out there, I'm getting my soil ready, I'm fertilizing it, and I'm envisioning all the plants I'm going to get. Should I leave room for plants to come in mid-year?
Yeah.
Should I already be thinking about that?
I think you should definitely think about what you want to plant, on your list for like late spring, like, okra,
Cucumbers,
eggplants, like purple hulls or southern peas that are going to be more heat loving. Because if that's something that's really important
sunflower,
you got to make sure that you have room, because if you've eaten it up with things that are going to be growing into that season, then you're going to be late planting the next thing.
Yeah.
So it is important to plan ahead. We always have some open spaces where we can throw things in.
Yeah.
And then also think about how a plant grows. I might be able to start okra or something else at the latter part of a lower growing crop as it's phasing out, and get it started, and it's growing upright and it's growing into the heat. It might provide a little shade for some of that other crop down below. So, you have to think ahead. Otherwise, you're going to be like, where am I going to put this?
Yeah. But so it feels like the best bit of advice is keep a journal. I mean, that's kind of what it comes down to.
It's hard. But organization, as with most anything in life, makes you a lot more successful, and you don't waste as much time and energy, which is easy to do in gardening, because we can spend a lot of money, a lot of time, oftentimes for nothing. And we already have, in this particular microclimate, we already have enough variables against us.
We have a lot,
on some crops. So there's already a good chance Mother Nature's going to prevent us from getting something we want anyway.
We have such a double-edged sword, and it can be really hard to plan it's springtime for the year to come. There's so many things we don't know that's going to happen, but that's why we try to plan our best. That way we can have a successful growing season, because in our area, in Zone 9 and where we live, there is a lot of opportunity here to grow a lot of food, because we basically have 3 seasons of growing. You can... I've grown spring crops in the fall before.
Yeah, most things can be planted twice. There's something that can be planted year-round here, which is unique. And I'll agree with you. We only have 3 seasons. We have a cool season, we have a warm season, and we have a hot season.
Right.
We don't, by all intents and purposes, we have no cold season.
We don't, not really, no.
So there is literally something that can be planted every month of the year, and some things, and majority of things, twice. But you're just limited to space and planning.
Yeah, people ask me about stuff all the time, because I kind of it's not an intuitive nature. I'm not somewhat successful at plants just because I learned it from my dad and I do it. It is some of that organization, right? And I could be a lot better organized than I am. I could keep a much better detailed journal. I just happen to, benefit from knowing mostly in my head what I planted. But if I wasn't that way, then I would definitely keep a much more detailed journal. And that goes for everything. It goes with your houseplants too. You'll notice a significant difference in the quality of your houseplants if you just keep a journal, right? That way you can separate things out and know when you've watered things. You'd be surprised how quickly you forget, I'm supposed to fertilize this every 2 months. I don't remember if I fertilized this or not.
It's hard enough to remember when I fertilized my plants in the garden.
100%.
Last, and that helps me keep on a more consistent regiment.
Yeah.
So I think as we wrap up, a quick recap would be in order.
Okay, yeah.
So things that we need to do to prep, we need to make sure everything's in order, that all of our beds and stuff are in good shape, they're ready to go. Make sure that we have things like plant supports and good tools ready, because if we don't plan ahead and we don't have the right structures to support certain types of crops, it can be completely detrimental.
It's a lot harder to put trellises in when the thing is filled with vegetation.
Yep.
It's impossible,
We want to have those things ready to go, installed if possible, but have them at the ready before we ever get started.
Yeah, that's good.
And then
good.
Come back in, amend our soil with compost, checking our consistency of soil, add drainage
Don't really
amendments.
till it or break it up, but work it a little bit.
Removing plants that we don't want by cutting them at the base,
Hey,
letting
hey,
the
leave
roots deteriorate.
Leave those roots in there.
Yeah.
David said leave those roots in there, okay?
Fertilize, preferably with a slow release organic. And then also, we didn't talk about this, but something to also have ready in preparation is when your plants start getting seedlings start coming up, transplants are starting to take root. Have your mulch layer ready in there to help regulate
that's we didn't talk
soil
about that. That's
temperature
good.
and
Mhm.
moisture, because it will make you more successful.
It helps keep the weeds out too. It's 100%. Well, that's good. I feel more confident for all the trips I'm going to take to the feed store this weekend. I think I've been inspired to maybe do a little bit better at journaling. I'm definitely going to, because I have all my seeds ready that need to go in there, but I'm going to keep better track of it this year. That way I can be more successful. And overall, that's really good tips, man. I appreciate that. Thanks for helping me out, and hopefully that you guys got something out of it too. I can't wait to see what everybody grows.
I'm
as this community grows with us, I hope we start seeing more pictures of people's plants. I hope we see all the things that people come up with that we don't even know ourselves, and I just can't wait for it.
Try new things.
I'm hopeful in spring, and we'll see you back here next time.